Once you understand quantum entanglement, manifestation becomes simple. Not easy, simple. Because you stop trying to force things to happen. You stop wondering if it's working. You stop questioning whether the law is real. You understand the science, the physics, the proven, documented, scientifically verified mechanics of how reality actually works. And once you see that, once you understand what quantum entanglement proves about consciousness and your reality, everything clicks. In this video, I'm going to break down quantum entanglement, what it is, what it proves, and why it makes reality creation undeniable. I work with high achievers who want more in every area of their life. More love, more money, more freedom, more success. And the ones who manifest with the most certainty, the ones who never doubt, they're not the ones who just believe, they're the ones who understand the science behind it all. They know that manifestation is not wishful thinking. It's not spiritual woo-woo. It isn't just for the lucky ones. No, it's physics. And once you understand the physics, once you see what quantum mechanics actually proves about consciousness and reality, you stop questioning, you stop doubting, and you just get on with creating because you know how it works. You've seen the proof. So let me show you. If you're new here, hello, I am your Muse Traci. On this channel, I help you unlock the power you already have but can't access. I help you break through where years of trying has failed. And the biggest hurdle of all, I help you go from intellectually knowing the law to permanently embodying it. So let's start with what quantum entanglement actually is. In 1935, Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen published a paper describing what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. They discovered that when two particles became entangled, basically when they interacted and then separated, they remained connected. No matter how far apart, when you measure one particle and it shows spin up, the other particle instantly shows spin down, not after some delay, instantly, no delay, even if the particles are on the opposite sides of the universe or the globe. Einstein called it spooky because it violated everything we thought we knew about physics. Information can't travel faster than light. But these particles were absolutely doing that. They were somehow communicating faster than the speed of light. They were communicating instantaneously, except they weren't communicating. That's the key. They were connected at a fundamental level as one system. And this connectedness has been proven over and over in laboratories all around the world. In 1982, Elaine Aspect conducted experiments that confirmed quantum entanglement is real. Not theory, real, measurable, repeatable. In 2022, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to 3 scientists for their work proving quantum entanglement and its implications. This isn't fringe, woo-woo, unsubstantiated science. This is actually established physics. So what does it mean? It means that at the quantum level, at the fundamental level of reality, separation is an illusion. Particles that were once connected remain connected. For how long? A week? A month? A year? 5 years? Nope. Always. No matter how far apart they may be, they're not two separate things. They're one entangled system. And here's where it gets important for manifestation. If particles can be entangled, if they can remain connected across any distance, what about consciousness? What about you and your SP? What about you and your desires? Any desire? What about you and your reality? Because consciousness isn't separate from quantum mechanics. Consciousness is part of the system. So let's talk about the observer effect, because this is where quantum mechanics prove that consciousness creates reality. In quantum mechanics, there's a famous experiment called the double slit experiment. I'm sure you've heard of it, but just in case you haven't, here's a quick rundown of what this experiment was. Scientists shot particles at a barrier with two slits. The particles behave differently depending on whether they're being observed or not. When nobody's watching, the particles act like waves. They go through both slits simultaneously as pure potential and create an interference pattern. But the moment you observe which slit the particle goes through, it stops acting like a wave and acts like a particle, collapsing from potential into reality. It goes through only one slit. The act of observation, the act of consciousness, paying attention, changes the behavior of the particle. Not metaphorically, literally. This is why I say your attention is selective. And it's why the term is also you pay attention. Your attention is the currency you pay for the selection through your attention. Consciousness affects matter at the quantum level, and this has been proven thousands of times in labs around the world by scientists who weren't trying to prove manifestation, they were just studying physics. But what they discovered is that consciousness isn't separate from reality. Consciousness affects reality. The observer isn't separate from the observed. They're entangled. You're not separate from your reality, your SP, your money, your success, your anything. You're entangled with it. And remember, when particles are entangled, shifts happen instantly. And just like the observer in the double slit experiment collapses the wave function into a specific outcome simply by observing, you collapse infinite possibilities into specific experiences by your attention and your assumptions, by your focus, by your consciousness. This is what Neville meant when he said, consciousness is the only reality, not as a spiritual concept, as physics. Your consciousness isn't observing a separate external reality. Your consciousness is entangled with your reality, and your observation, your assumption, your focus, that's what determines which version of reality you experience. So now let's talk about quantum superposition, because this is where the science proves that all possibilities exist simultaneously. We're getting super sciencey here, so take a moment and get a drink if you need, and I'm going to take a breath. Don't worry, I'm going to keep it simple as possible while making it also super impactful. So, in quantum mechanics, a particle exists in superposition. It's in all possible states at once. It's both spin up and spin down. And here and there, it's moving, it's still, it's all possibilities at once. All at once, all possibilities existing simultaneously. Until you observe it, until consciousness interacts with it. And then the superposition collapses, and you experience one specific state. But here's the key. All other possibilities still exist. They just exist in parallel realities that you're not experiencing. This is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, proposed by physicist Hugh Everett in 1957. Every time a quantum measurement is made, every time a possibility collapses into an actuality, all other possibilities continue to exist in parallel universes. You observe spin up in this reality, but in a parallel reality, you observe spin down. Both exist simultaneously. You're just experiencing one option. This is what Neville taught. This is all states exist now, that creation is finished, that everything you could possibly want already exists in another version of reality. And the science backs this up. Quantum superposition proves that all possibilities exist simultaneously until consciousness selects one. The many worlds interpretation proves that when you select one possibility, all other possibilities continue to exist in parallel realities. So when you're manifesting, when you're assuming a new state, when you're selecting a different version of your specific person or money or your life, you're not creating something new. You're selecting which parallel reality you want to experience. And that selection happens through consciousness, not through action and by doing, through observation, through assumption. Just like in the double slit experiment, they didn't go and try to move the slits around to make the particles go through only one slit, did they? No. Your consciousness collapses the wave function of infinite possibilities into the one specific reality you're assuming. So now let's bring this back to manifestation, and specifically manifesting a specific person, because that's what brings most of us to these teachings anyway. The drive of love and connection with the person we care about most. It's a wonderful thing. And well, quantum entanglement proves something that most people struggle to believe. You and your specific person are connected. Always. Not metaphorically, not hopefully, not in a romantic, dreamy, wishful hoping kind of way. No, energetically and at the quantum level. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles that interact become entangled. They're no longer separate systems. They're one system. And once entangled, they remain connected no matter the physical distance. You and your SP have interacted, you've shared space, you've shared experiences. At the quantum level, well, you're entangled, which means you're not two separate beings, you're part of the same system. And just like entangled particles affect each other instantaneously, your consciousness affects your specific person, not through transmission, through entanglement. When you assume my specific person loves me, you're not sending that thought out to them over the airwaves. You're collapsing the wave function of your entangled system into the reality where that's true. And because you're entangled, they respond. They respond, they must respond because you're one system. This is why everyone is you pushed out. Not because you're controlling them, but because at the quantum level, you're entangled, you're connected, you're one. And your consciousness, your assumptions, your observation, that determines which version of the entangled system you experience. All possible versions already exist, right? As potential. Until you pay through your attention to one version. Your attention to that version collapses the potential, and the version you are paying attention to is the version that starts to show up in your reality. The version where they love you, or the version where they don't. The version where they're devoted, or the version where they're distant. Both of these versions exist in superposition. You're selecting which one collapses into your experienced reality. And the science proves this is how it works. So, why does understanding quantum entanglement make manifestation simple? Because you stop questioning whether it's real. You stop doubting whether it works. You understand the mechanics, the physics, the science. Quantum entanglement proves you're connected to everything, to your SP, to money, to success, to any of your desires, to infinite possibilities. The observer effect proves that consciousness affects reality, that your observation, your assumptions, your focus, that determines what you experience. Quantum superposition proves that all possibilities exist simultaneously. You're not creating, you're selecting. The many worlds interpretation proves that when you select a different assumption, you're shifting to a parallel reality where that assumption already exists. This isn't belief, this is physics. And once you understand the physics, once you see the proof, you stop trying to make it work. You stop wondering if it's going to work. You just assume, you select, you collapse the wave function into the reality you want because you know that's how it works. Science has already proved it. Your consciousness is entangled with your reality. Your observation collapses infinite possibilities into specific experiences. All versions exist now in superposition. You're not hoping, you're not wishing, you're not trying. You're selecting which reality you want to experience from the infinite realities that already exist. That's manifestation. And quantum mechanics proves it's real. Most people watch this video and still doubt, still question, still wonder if manifestation is real. Still be attached to their 3D and playing the role of victim to their reality. That is certainly a role you can play with your free will of choice. However, I don't recommend it. And if you're here watching this video, you're not into that anymore either, I wouldn't assume. Because when you know all of this information, you have the power to change any situation. So why wouldn't you use that? You understand now that manifestation isn't wishful thinking. It's quantum mechanics. It's proven physics. You're entangled with your reality. Your consciousness collapses all possibilities into your experiences. All versions exist in superposition. You're simply selecting which one you experience. And if you're not experiencing what you prefer, then we could ask the question, why? Why is that happening? So, if you're ready to use this understanding and you're ready to stop doubting and start selecting deliberately, consciously, if you're ready to collapse the wave function into the reality you actually want instantly, there's a link in the pinned comment where you can book a free strategy call with me. We'll look at which reality you're currently collapsing into through your assumptions. Will shift you to consciously selecting the version you actually want, and will align you with the quantum mechanics of how manifestation actually works. This is the work that I do with my clients. This is the work that makes it simple. So simple. It's not the techniques. It's not the will-powered mind control. It's this deep understanding of how it works. Thank you all so much for watching. See you in the next one.